we're excited to launch the first episode of the RepVue podcast. And just by way of background, as most of you know who are listening to this, RepVue is designed to help sales professionals navigate their careers and access transparent insights and data from thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of their peers as it relates to sales organizations, places they might want to work, compensation data. And we're launching this podcast to add another layer of that by bringing on sales leaders and in some cases talent acquisition leaders to talk about things like, as a great leader, what do I look for in my team? As a great leader, what are some of the traits that I see in top performers, and all kinds of other things to also help you navigate your career. So we're excited to launch the podcast. I'm Ryan, founder and CEO of RepVue. I'll be on most of these, and I'll turn it over to our VP of Strategy, Darin, who will be riding shotgun on all these as well.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. There's the first Slack message. We have like podcast bingo whenever Ryan goes on podcasts. There's always a Slack chime or his dog barking, the doorbell, something. So it's good. But yeah, excited to be here and excited to have our first guest, Josh Roth, who's been a big fan of RepVue since I got to know him last summer. And Josh, we'll kick it over to you. Would love to hear about you and your role, and we'll go from there.
Cool. Well, I absolutely love RepVue. I remember submitting my first rating all the way back in February or March of 2020, shortly after it launched. And I remember thinking like this is going to be huge. And what's been built over the last year plus is a testament to the work of the team. So excited to be here. I am the vice president of commercial sales at Lob. So I run our inbound SDR function that collaborates with our demand generation team, our outbound BDR function, which collaborates with account executives to drive strategic accounts, and then our SMB and mid-market account executive teams, which is closing deals. And then I also lead our revenue enablement function at Lob.
And congrats on the recent promotion. Had a good run so far at Lob.
Very much appreciated. It's exciting, and more to come.
Yeah. So looking at your background, we had similar roles in college. Like I used to call alumni to try to sell basketball tickets at Pacific. Luckily, we were kind of good when I was doing that. You did some of that, but you had a marketing role too. Like talk to us about that, how you started with that transition, maybe from marketing to sales.
Yeah, I always wanted to work in sports as a kid. And so in college, I wanted to do anything that involved sports, and, got really lucky at Oregon. We had Chip Kelly was our coach. So we were not losing all that many games when I was there. And so we ended up launching collegiate sports' first ever social media command center, which we called the Quack Cave. Still a great name. And ultimately, when I wanted to move into marketing in sports, I was advised, before you get into marketing, you got to go to sales. You need to understand what your customers want. You need to understand how to talk to them and what message resonates. So I thought, all right, let me just do like a year or something of sales, and then I'll just go back to marketing. And after about 3 to 4 months of selling, I realized it's a little addicting because it's just about the effort level. If you're going to work harder than your colleagues, you will likely sell more than them, and you will get better than them faster, enabling you to make money, be successful, move up in your career. And it ended up becoming a career and transitioned out of sports and into software. And, I love every minute of being in SaaS.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, you worked for the Mets too, selling when they weren't like the best team in the league. I guess they had like David Wright and some of that crew back then. That was before Harvey had his downgrade. But the sports background of selling tickets with a team that wasn't amazing must be a tough sell too.
It was a really tough sell, and I actually think that made my career, because if I could sell the Mets when they were last place or second to last place out of the playoffs within the first month, I could really sell anything. And understanding what it was going to take to sell something like that enables you to sell a strong product that has market fit really, really easily. So that really made my career. And last year we went to the World Series, and after that, I was like, I can't. I'm done. I can't wait for a ring. This was as close as it's going to get. Time for me to go do something else.
Yeah.
Hey, real quick on earlier in your career, you were doing marketing and you mentioned somebody gave you a piece of advice to maybe go do some sales first, right? Were you still in school at that time, or was that after school? That's a piece of sage advice that you got there, right? Like to give you that foundation. What type of person was that who had the foresight to do that? Because I think there's a gap in educational systems related to sales versus marketing and other disciplines. So like how did that give just a tiny bit more color on like that and why you embraced it?
Yeah, so I was a senior in college, going to take a job at some point, and Buffy Philippell, who is the CEO and founder of Teamwork Online, which I liken Teamwork to be the Indeed.com of the of the sports world.
I remember Teamwork. Yep.
Yep. Yeah, she kind of walked me through it, and she knew I wanted to be in marketing, or maybe like the operation side, so the player operation side. And she had said, look, if you want that, you need to understand your customers first, and you have to start there. You need to talk to customers, you need to sell to customers, you need to understand what they want, what they don't have, things that they would enjoy. So it was really the best advice I ever could have gotten, because I'd never been in sales before. And Darin, you had mentioned we were calling on alumni. That actually is what led me to being a part of the annual giving foundation at Oregon. And that was the first ever sales job I had, was calling alumni, asking for donations to Oregon.
So that's a good segue into, like, it sounds like your dad was in sales. Poopy Chicago might be the title of this episode based on your post yesterday.
I would hope it is.
Probably not. I don't know if that's on brand with RepVue, but how did he have an influence? Like, how did he play into you getting into sales too?
I think your parents always have an influence on you at some point. My dad worked in consulting for the vast majority of kind of my younger years. As I got to high school and then college, he became an entrepreneur and started his own company. And as an entrepreneur, you have to sell. it's a requirement to be an entrepreneur. And one of the interesting things that I saw with my dad is he and I are actually very different. I'm very outgoing. I'm going to ask questions. He's a little bit more introverted. He wants to understand. He wants to figure out whether or not he can be impactful. And the way that he sold is very different than I think the way most people think about sales, because he wasn't the type A, in your face, type of salesperson that you might see, either 10 years ago or today. He was very reserved, asked a lot of questions, understood the impact, and would shoot people pretty straight as to whether or not he can or cannot be impactful. And that had a big effect on me, because that was in the housing crisis. So when everyone was struggling, he was trying to build this business. And even when, it was really difficult to actually sell in that time, he still sold to new customers in a one-person company, because people valued him and recognized that he wasn't just going to sell, he was going to sell for impact.
Yeah, man, we could have a conversation about that. My dad, similar story on how he did that too, one person company. Be a whole different conversation we have. Let's transition to Lob, unless Ryan, you had other questions about any of that with Josh.
No, great background. Love it.
Yeah. Let's talk about Lob. Do you have a process? What do you look for? To talk about that.
Big time in the hiring.
Yeah, for hiring specifically. Like, if I was interviewing at Lob, what advice would you give me?
Yeah, so the first step if we're talking about what advice would I give, it's be different. I think there's so much around being a cultural fit or a cultural add, and I think that it's fine, right? But really, you want to be different. I always liken it to, you want to be the needle, not the haystack. And in a hiring process, particularly for a sales role, you are never going to be as passionate about selling anything else as you are about selling yourself, right? So that's as passionate as it's ever going to get. Be passionate. we hired a few people who reached out to me on LinkedIn referencing, what they can bring to Lob. I always want to see what you can bring and what your process looks like. Are you sending an audio message on LinkedIn? Are you sending a video? What are you referencing on RepVue that is going to show me, okay, that you've done your research? I know, that this person has done their research on Lob because they reference that Lob is the #1 company on RepVue's rankings for professional development. And someone that is bringing that attitude and that passion to the hiring process, I know they're going to be an easy student to teach them how to be a good AE, a good SDR, BDR, enablement professional, whatever it might be.
So what you're saying is the DNA and the research of them applying for the job, finding out about Lob, finding out about you view as the DNA of how they'll be as a salesperson.
100%, because they will never be as passionate about selling anything else as they are about selling themselves.
Yeah, agreed. I couldn't agree more. Brian, it looks like you have
yeah, just intellectual. I've hired many sales professionals over the years as well, and you definitely get better at it. You're never perfect at it. Intellectual curiosity, if you can suss that out, is huge, right? So I always used to start with, tell me your story. And then I think that's probably very similar to how passionate are they? Is it just reading through their resume, or are they, are they actually telling the story? And then the intellectual curiosity goes to we talk a lot about giving, and maybe you could shine a little light on how you approach this, but like in terms of enabling them to ask questions, right? Enabling them to dig in, right? Like, to me, you get a lot of intellectual curiosity kind of data points around how they leverage that time. Are you looking for anything, like if you say, what questions you have for us, like how do you approach that part of the interview?
Yeah, so I always like to work in buckets of 3. So the 3 things I typically look for more than anything else is your hustle or effort. Passion is a second, and third, Ryan, you actually nailed it. I say natural curiosity. Intellectual curiosity is kind of right in there. And I also like to segment interviews in 3 chunks. The first chunk is typically just like getting to know you. Who are you? Where do you like to come from? Ryan, you kind of said, tell your story. The second 10 minutes, I like to dig into kind of what you've done professionally, where you are, where you want to go. And the third bucket is typically like, you ask me questions. You're running the interview, ask me anything. And really what I'm not really looking for anything in that last bit where, candidates are asking me questions. Really what I'm sussing through is, are you asking what everyone else is asking, or are you asking things that you genuinely want to ask? Are you going to ask like, tell me about the culture, and, what accounts are you going after? Do you really want to understand and dig into the process? And there isn't really a right or wrong answer. I think if you probably Google best questions to answer in an interview, that might be your wrong answers. Because I want to know whether you actually are asking these questions, or whether you're asking questions just for the sake of asking questions.
Mm-hmm.
I
think I like that a lot. And I think there's, as much as that, it's in asking the questions, Josh providing answers, and then where do they take the follow-up questions? Are they digging in? Like, are you going a layer deeper? Because that shows true intellectual or natural curiosity is trying to learn. So I like those 3 segments of the interview.
To that point, what's the best question you've ever been asked?
Ooh, that's a really tough question.
So many interviews.
I'll talk about some of the ones that I've been asked before, and it's actually kind of specific to somebody that I could really tell was trying to learn about our product and our value proposition, like digging into like, all right, well, so they have some baseline information of what the product is or does from the website and whatever materials they can access online before the interview. And then they're literally digging in to how does this product work? What pain does it solve? And then going deeper and deeper, like really truly trying to understand, the customer, the pain, like I've had some of the most incredible interviews from sales professionals when literally it almost turns into us giving a pitch of the product simply because they're wanting to devour that, and ideally they're trying to get that information so they can determine if they feel like there's a fit with how they can sell and what their process is and what their style is.
So
it doesn't happen that often, but
it's interesting. Like that's I think probably the best answer I'm going to give here as well, which was there was one candidate who had asked, hey, what are the goals for the company by the end of the year? Gave the goals and he said, oh, okay, why wouldn't you hit these goals? What would preclude you from hitting these goals? And I share that. And then they would dig into each reason. Well, why is that the reason? What are you doing to prevent it? And I felt that it was not only very strategic, but I thought it was very forward thinking. Very rarely do you get that granular. That's a conversation I would have with, our CEO, CRO, COO, and to see a salesperson going that deep to understand the intricacies of the business and where we might fail and succeed was really, really interesting to kind of get into that. And we hired that person.
Yeah. I was going to say that's DNA for discovery of how they're going to go run a call with a prospect, because you're the prospect. It's the same thing.
Bingo.
Yeah. Sell me on why Lob. Sell me on why I should work with you.
Yeah. I love that as well. And it's also, what's preventing you from hitting your goals means what's preventing them from potentially hitting their goals as well. Right?
Exactly. They're digging into that OTE right there.
Right. All right. Yeah. I didn't wear my off-target earnings shirt. I should have worn my off-target earnings shirt.
Let's transition to, so we're on Zoom doing this. Would have been awesome doing it in person. Pre-COVID hiring, post-COVID hiring. What's the biggest difference?
I think someone that understands how to work with their own autonomy. I think pre-COVID, it was a little bit easier to just, you're next to people, right? Here's how to do this, right? You lean over, you show them, you can kind of monitor that. People are on their own now. You're going to have kind of that self-starter, someone that's willing to try and fail, and someone that recognizes the responsibility that comes with the autonomy, right? You want to take a nap at noon? You can 100% take a nap at noon. Is it affecting the rest of your day and is it affecting your performance? You're going to have to be the judge of that, because no one is kind of there to pull you back. You have to do it yourself. And I think that those that are self-starters and are able to work well with autonomy are thriving even more so than they were. And I think those that aren't quite as skilled at that need to upskill quickly.
Yeah, there's a Japanese term for taking a nap at work. It's inimuri. It's like taking naps at work in Japan is a pretty big thing. So maybe that needs to come here.
Interesting. My dad used to call them executive naps.
Executive naps. Do you need a nap if you get enough sleep, though? I guess that's the question. If you get enough sleep at night.
I would argue you don't. Or maybe if you work out in the morning, get that blood flowing a little bit.
I mean, if you charge your phone to plug your phone in the middle of the day because it's dead, it's the same thing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's rolling his eyes.
I guess if you don't plug your phone in all night.
Well, there you go.
Or you're using brain power, just like your own brain. You're like, I need to recharge. How do you keep the team connected at Lob now that everyone's all over the place?
The biggest ways that I try to do this is through transparency, celebration, and responsibility is the third. Transparency is letting the team know what's going on, even if it's not only not great news, but giving them a window into business decisions as they're kind of happening. And even if, I think some might actually consider this oversharing. But really what I'm trying to do is over communicate to our team what might happen and just some things to keep their eyes on. And I trust that they're not going to become distracted with that information. Certainly, want to make sure that the right people are okay with me sharing that before you go do it. But I think that keeping that transparency and honesty, particularly in a digital world, is so critical, because you have to not only build the relationship, but you have to build trust. One thing Simon Sinek says a lot is we have thousands of ways to measure performance and little to no ways to measure trust. And so, for me, being as open and transparent as I can with absolutely everything is mission critical. That's one way. The second way is just celebration. Celebrate on Slack, right? Add gifts, make it fun. It's not the same as high-fiving someone in person, but it's what we've got. So make the best of it. And really the last way is through responsibility, delegation to people, giving people chances to try new things, learn new things, even if it means they're going to fail the first time. Recognize that with the right teaching and the right coaching, they'll get it right the second and third time.
I like that, 3 buckets. And that's probably there, even if we were in person, like that shouldn't change. It's just the way that it's delivered. The gifts,
I think,
the high five.
you're spot on.
Yeah, I like that.
How many employees are there now at Lob?
We're probably hovering around 250 to 275. LinkedIn will probably show us at a little bit above 300, which also could be correct, but
Yeah. So I think that's the transparency piece is interesting as you grow, right? As you the 50th employee, the 100th employee, like there's more access to data and information. Right now, we're at RepVue. We have our 11th employee starting soon, but it's still very small. So everybody kind of can access, and everybody kind of knows everything. But as you get bigger, have you had to manage instances of employees that maybe had access to stuff prior and now they feel like they're not? And you ever come across, how do you handle that from a transparency standpoint?
Yeah, absolutely. It's challenging, right? People that are used to having a certain level of access that, now either don't have that access or need to focus their attention elsewhere, right? It's a big challenge of running an organization. And I think part of it is building that open, honest, transparent, and trust in the relationship that I will fill the team in when it is appropriate. Because I think that ultimately, if the team doesn't trust, the team's not, you're going to lose people. People are going to leave, even if, it's a great place to work. And so I think that that's a critical way to do it. And it sounds silly, but the way that I answer that is actually through honesty. Look, we're growing as an organization. The access that you had, direct line to the CRO, a year ago, it's a different world. We're running a full function now, as opposed to a very small tactical team. And, there's now layers of management that didn't exist before, but recognize that everyone here has your best interest in mind. And if there's something on your mind, come and talk to us, right? We'll find a solution that is amenable to everybody, in the room.
Yeah. Love that. That's why sales professionals are flocking to work on your team.
It's the cul-de-sac to a street, to a neighborhood, to a town. It gets tough to get communication out for sure. Yeah. That's a good segue though for transparency around candidates, like prospective candidates. Would you ever show them, and we're going to ask this to everybody that comes on the show, would you show them a quota attainment dashboard in your CRM with them hiring?
1,000%.
Have you done it?
No one's asked for it, so I haven't done it. Oh, actually, no, it's not true. Yes, I have. Not true. So I keep my own performance sheet. It's in Excel of essentially, what people's quotas were, what their attainment was. It's really for more the commission purpose of it, so that I have something I can send to finance if there's a discrepancy. But yes, I've absolutely shared that. At some point, I think I had said 88% of the team hit quota, and someone said, "Okay, prove it." I said, "Great. Here you go. Here's your sheet."
Challenger interviewer.
Yeah, you're going to get called by all the commission tracking software companies over the next week because you just said that you've got something in a spreadsheet.
Oh, 100%. Spiff sends me emails like every week. Just got one today.
Now we can A/B test how many candidates come to you and ask the question now.
Yeah.
That's a good point, because I've only done it once, maybe twice. Now I would assume that everybody, that's going to interview with Lob is going to say, "All right, I want to see that spreadsheet."
Well, anybody that's done proper research that you'd want to hire anyway, that's probably going to get to that point in the conversation. Well, hopefully you've got there.
Absolutely. Yeah. I would expect nothing less.
Yeah.
All right. Last question. Why does the team like working with you? What would they say? If we asked your team, what would they say?
Boy, that's a complete mystery. I'm still searching for the answer today.
Full leadership right there.
No, look, I think I wish I could take credit and say that, I'm this great leader, but I really don't think I am. I think it's the culture that the team created that we're really flourishing off of. And I'll give you an example. There was a tough conversation we had about a month and a half ago with 3 people on the team. They had come to me and said, hey, like, we'd like to have a cultural sync with you. And we had a chat, and it was a tough conversation. Basically what they were saying is, we feel like, X is happening and we would like Y to happen. And, for the sake of privacy, I'll keep the details aside, but it was a tough conversation that I think a lot of times it's just tough to hear, right? Because you don't want to hear it. You don't want it to be true. And for me, I felt the same. I kind of felt like, boy, how could this be happening on a team that I'm leading? And it was a little embarrassing. And I was genuinely disappointed in myself and embarrassed, but we understood what the problem was. We discussed what the solution was. We looped in the right people to solve it, and we solved it. We've done a couple of check-ins with the people that weren't as happy before. And we've been, the feedback that we got is like, this is even more, it is even better than we thought it was going to be when we brought it to your attention. And, it's like one of the pieces that one of them had said is, it's like working on a different team. And, it's like, all right, it's tough. You don't want to fix it because you don't want it to be true. But just because you don't want it to be true doesn't mean it isn't. And if it's been brought to your attention from someone on your team, you need to take it seriously and you need to fix it. And it doesn't mean that like anyone's job's at risk or like, there needs to be any like retribution or anything like that. It's just, look, let's put our heads together. Let's solve the problem and let's make it better in the long run. And I think that culture that the team has led to a culture that people enjoy working in. And I just so happen to be a part of it. But I don't believe that this is anything that I do that is, worlds different from what any other, person that is leading a function would want to do.
Yeah, I love how you deflect the credit, which is great. I think that when you have a great product and a solid market, right? If you overlay that with really, really good leadership, and then that's when great things happen, right? So, I think you all have both of those things. So first of all, congratulations on the growth and the success of Lob. We love partnering with you guys, and love that answer of deflecting credit.
That comes from the Ryan Walsh world of leadership too.
Credit goes down, blame goes up. It's my theory.
Yeah.
Bingo. We're lucky that we have a team full of leaders at Lob, and we certainly leverage that to say the least.
Yeah.
Awesome. How can people get a hold of you?
Shoot me messages on LinkedIn. Actually just had a candidate earlier today, actually funny enough, say, hey, I'm a senior in college. I checked out this site called RepVue. Lob is top 10, and I'm applying to exclusively, I don't know, I don't remember if he had said top 10 or top 15, but I would like to have a conversation with Lob. Here's what I like. Here's specifically why I think I would be awesome. I would like to talk to you. I said, shoot me an email, and we just got him connected over with our recruiter and manager who are hiring for the role.
Awesome.
Love that. It's
awesome.
The modern sports recruiting. It's like, let me take the top list. Who's got the best food in the dining hall? Who's got the best training facilities? Like,
who's got the best NIL deals, baby? Let's go.
Exactly.
Who's got night as an alumni, just giving out new jerseys every weekend.
It's that's why I love RepVue. For us, it's been an absolute competitive differentiation. It's where we can show who we are as an organization beyond just a list of logos, a bunch of promises from an executive. We have the data to back it up, and RepVue allows us to demonstrate that and publicize it.
Glad to hear you're seeing value out of it, and glad to hear you're leveraging third-party data to back up what you're saying. It's awesome. Cool.
Awesome.
Guest number 1. Thanks, Josh. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Yeah.
The races.